Welcome everybody to the Science of Mind discussion evening with Reverend Nancy Woods, and my name is Maureen Hoyt. I am a former minister here at the Granada Hills Center for Spiritual Living, a minister emeritus. Our presider for this evening is Vinu, and we start every service with our call to service, which is called Lighting the Flames of Faith. We perform this ceremony to promote the universal consciousness of life, which acknowledges that all peoples, all faiths, all sentient beings come from that one great universal presence, which we call spirit. Fundamental to this truth is the unifying nature of all religious thought and experience, which we honor here today. As Vinu lights the first candle, it is for the Tao, honoring the universal path of harmony and equilibrium, the natural way. The second candle we light for the shamanic traditions, honoring the beliefs and practices of all indigenous peoples, the way of primal spirituality. We light the third candle for Hinduism, honoring the path of knowledge, action, and devotion. We light the fourth candle for Judaism, honoring the ethical path of living by sacred law. We light the fifth candle for all forms of Buddhism, honoring the Four Noble Truths and the path of compassion. We light the sixth candle for all forms of Christianity, honoring the Christ consciousness as the path of love. We light the seventh candle for all forms of Islam, honoring the path of submission to the will of God as the highest calling. We light the eighth candle for the universalistic religion of Baha'i, honoring the path of unity and peace. We light the ninth candle for all forms of new thought, honoring the metaphysical path of mental healing through the practice of universal spiritual principles. We light the 10th candle for those who are as yet unaware of the power and presence of spirit in their lives, and for the space we hold for them at this center, in our hearts, and on the live stream. And as Vinu lights the healing candle, please put silently into the light the names of anyone you wish to have experience the healing flame of God's eternal love.
Thankful, so grateful, I'm one with the Spirit all around me. I'm thankful, so grateful, I trust in God. I surrender, I'm one with the Spirit all around me. I surrender, I trust in God.
We just stay here for a few moments longer, recognizing the one all that is, everywhere and everyone in all things. Recognizing our unity, our oneness with the divine, our one with God, with source, with love, with universal consciousness. Knowing that tonight's Wednesday night discussion unfolds in divine perfection, that we are one with this wisdom, this clarity, this community, this conversation. Knowing we are in the presence of great minds tonight, great hearts, that we are uplifted and expanded, that the right and perfect words are heard, that the right and perfect words are shared, that we leave here knowing a bit more than we did when we came in, knowing that this is a continuous journey of learning throughout our lives. I am so grateful for this center, for Spiritual Living of Granada Hills, for this co-creation, for everyone here in person tonight and online, whether it finds you at this moment or later on. Grateful for Renzen on AV, and for these spiritual powerhouses we have here tonight. It is with this full and grateful heart I release my word to the law, knowing it is all done, knowing it is all love. And together we affirm by saying,
And so it is.
Just a couple of announcements, before we start. This Saturday, October 25th at 2 p.m., we are having a celebration of life for our beloved Margie Lesser. Next Wednesday, October 29th at 7 p.m., Burl Bullerjack will be here to lead us in a drumming circle. Love donations welcome. Our Harvest Festival is happening on November 8th from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., so that's coming up. Prepaid tickets for $45 are now on sale until October 29th. After then, they'll be $50. They can be purchased through our email, or you can come in person. If you want more information, there's a flyer out in Sparks Hall. So now I will hand it off to the Revs.
Thank you. I want to say welcome. We have a small but powerful group tonight, and we have one of the essays out of Living the Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes, and these were very often short little articles that he would write for Science of Mind magazine in the 50s and the 40s. And some of them are much longer, and they were part of his instruction. We like to keep it short and sweet because the discussion always ends up being quite rousing here on Wednesday nights. And tonight we're reading from page 315 in Living the Science of Mind, and it's called Divine Ideas. And if we'll start with Vino, if you will read the first paragraph. And if you wish, this is very gender specific because that's how it was in those days. And if you'd like to change it to I, we, I would welcome that wholeheartedly.
We must know that the doorway of opportunity is never closed. We are always receptive to the divine ideas. It is never too late for us to manifest opportunity. It is never withheld from us for a single moment. There is no sense of limited or restricted opportunity.
Treat to know that your client is at the doorway of limitless opportunity, forever expanding in their experience. Everywhere we go goes a new and better opportunity for self-expression opens before us. We are compelled to recognize this opportunity and to act intelligently upon it. Our imagination is continuously increasing. New ideas come to us every day, and we know how to execute these ideas.
And right here, be sure to remember that nothing can come out of a treatment that is not first put into it. Hence, it is not enough to state that God is limitless, for though this abstract statement is undoubtedly true, no concrete manifestation of it can take place in the experience of the client until we specifically designate that it is taking place.
Know that our patient is receptive in the influx of ideas. Feel that they are now
The object,
the object of every infinite situation.
solicitation.
All right, these glasses gotta go. And that friends are impelled towards him, them, and that he is compelled to recognize them, and that his talents are appreciated, and he is significantly compensated.
adequately compensated.
adequately compensated.
You know?
Free every belief about us which we have brought to us. Ask why we think we are not getting along better, and then deny every negation which we affirm, immediately affirming its direct opposite. Handle the case specifically and definitely. Formulate our statements in such a way that if the words were actual things and immediately formed before us, the form which they would take would be desirable.
It's an interesting concept, right? The first paragraph is particularly, let's say, poignant. We must know that the doorway of opportunity is never closed. We are always receptive to the divine ideas. It is never too late for us to manifest opportunity. It is never withheld from us for a single moment. There is no sense of limited or restricted opportunity. Do we believe that? Do we practice that every day? You know, for someone to say right now, with the conditions the way they are in the country and in the world, actually, to some degree, that there is no sense of limited or restricted opportunity. I was working with someone a couple of weeks ago where he said he wanted me to treat for a new job opportunity for him. And he said, but there are no jobs out there now. There are more people unemployed than there are jobs currently in the United States. And I said, well, how many jobs do you need? And he looked at me like, what do you mean by that? I said, but you said there are no jobs out there. Are you looking for more than one job? And I said, you've got to define what the right and perfect job is. You need to write a template of the right and perfect job. And it was so interesting that he took to that like a fish to water. You know, that he could write down the requirements that he had for finding a new job, seeking a new job, and that he could release his old job with love and move on to the next job. A lot of times people think they have to be angry in order to leave something. They have to be angry in order to leave a job. They have to be angry in order to leave a relationship. They have to be angry in order to make a move of any kind, you know. So wondering what your thought process is around this first paragraph. Kathy, it doesn't really have to be this cold in here. I just wanted to move the air. Thank you, Renzen. Renzen got it.
Well, I had turned it down because I was hot, but now I've cooled down.
Yes, that works. It works that way when the air comes on.
That same concept you were saying about jobs, it's the same thing with relationships. Because I've told people, all you need is one. It's not like maybe high school age, somebody thinks, oh, they want to be popular and have all these boyfriends around them. No, all you need is one. So I think that's a good thing in principle with anything. Job, relationship.
Yeah, that is.
I would like to talk about this idea of we are always receptive to divine ideas. When you said, do we believe that? I realized I automatically nodded no. And I recognize that the divine is always flowing to me. According to Ernest Holmes, I am always receptive. However, we have this thing called our overthinking and our belief systems. So it might feel like the valve is shut off. You know, I might say something like, I feel disconnected from source, but I know in truth there is never a disconnection. So I feel like kind of comes down to as you asked, do you believe it? What is our perception of this receptivity? And can we shift our thinking around that? So instead of saying, I don't feel it in this moment, can I say, oh, I know it's there. I know I am receiving the divine. Something in me is blocking it right now, and that's temporary.
So would it be safe to say, and I'll let Nancy riff on this one, that divine ideas, excuse me, divine ideas come from within? They don't come from without.
You know, when you were talking about how that guy felt when he started talking about what he wants, that is, to me, that is the key. If we figure out how to change our thinking about
Yep.
a certain thing, we got it on our mind. As long as it's on our mind, then we feeding it some kind of energy in some way. But if you just, instead of acknowledge you have this on your mind, and then start looking at what you want and how you like to be, and that immediately takes the energy in a whole different direction. He went into a whole different direction when he started talking about what he wanted.
Yes.
And that is, and the enthusiasm, the level of feeling that is going to go into that new thinking is the kind of thing that would feed the universal nugget that he's planting at that time. So I think that one of the things that is significant, it hit me a couple of weeks ago when Reverend Mike said, all right, what do you know what you want? Focus on what you want. How many of you know what you want to do? And you know, and I've been thinking about that ever since. Somehow, I was talking about what I want. I wanted to have more, all my bills paid, but do you see where I'm going? I'm still thinking about having them. What would I do if all the bills are paid and what all?
How would I be?
How would I be? So I think about, so that is significant. Even when I'm thinking about something of discomfort, I don't deny that the discomfort is there. I say I do have a discomfort, but at that point, that's the end of saying I have the discomfort. Start thinking about which way would I like to be in life as far as I start thinking, boy, what if I could run down my steps and run back up the steps? And you know, and start thinking in that direction. So it's been my new way of thinking. So I can leave some of that other energy behind.
It's not so much about having a new car. It's the idea of getting from point A to point B without having to think about it.
Yeah, with ease and comfort.
With ease and comfort. So the other idea that we were thinking about doing tonight, I did a few months ago when Nancy wasn't here. And the idea is that it's not so much the physical characteristics of the new job environment that are appealing to a person. It's how we feel when we go to that job. Is there spaciousness? Is I had a nuclear stress test recently, and this guy works in the basement of the hospital. There are no windows. There's no light coming in from anywhere, and he works a 12-hour shift. And I said to him, don't you get sort of the heebie-jeebies being down here all day long? And he said, we are committed to having frequent breaks. Instead of having, a half-hour lunch, they have a half-hour break every 3 hours. And they go up to the cafeteria, there's brightness, there are windows, you can look outside, you can see what the weather looks like. So one of the things about doing treatment for somebody who wants it to shift and change, wants to have a different relationships, wants to be healthier, wants to have a new career, is about how would we feel if we had those things. You know, it's a divine idea in the mind of God all ready for us to receive. You know, but we have to internalize how it feels when we only have to commute 3 miles to work. How does it feel when you're in among people that you really love, where there's diversity and different ethnic groups in the workplace? How do we feel when we are appreciated for the job that we do? All of those kinds of things are almost more important than the actual physical space in which one works. So your point is well taken. How do you feel? Comments? Yes? So your client is at the doorway of limitless opportunity. I highlighted limitless opportunity. Tell me what that looks like. What does limitless opportunity look like?
How I feel that is because the universe is boundless, spirit is boundless, that opportunities can come through various avenues and channels. Sometimes I'll do this where I'll get stuck, well, how am I going to pay for such and such a thing that I desire? And then something comes through that I might have even, not in my small mind, might not have even thought of. And I've had things unfold like this. I think I talked about once when we had the 4T prosperity class where we would break out in the groups, and I made a declaration of taking home 1,000 more a month. And I made that declaration not knowing how it would come through. Well, I never realized that after I retired, I do the substitute assignments, and I am generating a lot of months, more than $1,000. Although now I'm starting to feel like releasing that source of income, and now I'm open to some other source of extra income, and I need to know that there's infinite ways. It's not just going to come through that one thing. That's what I'm working on now, and I like that first sentence about we must know that doorway of opportunity is never closed. It doesn't matter my age or whatever, that door's never closed.
So would it be safe to say that your job is not your source?
Right.
It's simply a vehicle through which the source demonstrates itself in your life.
Yes.
Okay, so we have to get clear about that, because in the 4T prosperity program, Stretton Smith is very clear that he gives a list of what sources that we have that we don't even realize sometimes are the source and substance of our supply. Now, there's one source. So the avenue and the substance of our supply comes from wherever it comes from. And as Reverend Nancy will attest, I don't know how I managed to get this way, because I was raised by depression mentality parents. But I absolutely know that I will always be financially able, and that it does come from sources. Yes, sometimes when I'm editing a manuscript that I really don't want to edit, but I've made a contract with this person, I think to myself, wow, I didn't realize I'd have to work so hard for my unexpected income, right? But in the end, it's a good thing, because I don't have to go out and look for a job. The jobs come to me because I receive the jobs from satisfied previous customers, shall we say. And so the recommendation comes. It's just a wonderful thing. One job finishes and somebody phones me and says, I have a book that I want you to edit, and we're off and running. But there's no limit to where we can receive. Reverend Dr. Keith Cox said to me one time when I said, income from unexpected sources. He said, what do you mean, unexpected sources? You know, there's only one source. How about income from unexpected avenues? You know, things we never expected. So that being said, let's talk about what that paragraph really means for everybody.
The second one?
Yeah, because we once we demonstrate, let's say income, we demonstrate income, we now have a frame of reference for what our expectation is. If it can come from that avenue, then it can come from this avenue and all different avenues. So Kathy, you could conceivably live a very decent life on the income that you receive from either retirement income or Social Security or whatever that is, that you don't have to work if you don't want to. So that's a good place to be. Right. Yeah, that's a good place to be.
I think that one of the things that helps us buy into that consciousness is having some kind of practice where we are reminding ourselves of the unlimited potentiality of the universe, and actually approaching it from the place of not think about what we're going to do, the financial resources, which way they are going to come, but focus on the concept of our belief and our faith in the idea that there is an infinite
So
presence.
have you ever had somebody come to you for counseling or for treatment and say, I don't know how I'm going to do this?
Yes.
Yes.
And that's why I think it's that practice is really significant of how we, what we expose our mind to, and what we are looking at on a daily basis, and it doesn't have to be connected to anything you're actually experiencing. I think that for me, I can get a little caught up, I got these things I need to pay and all this stuff. If I look at this money, and I realize that those kind of things are tying me to a fixed amount of money and stuff. But I find that I feel good when I read that in a 365 or a Rumi, one of these other teachers, the unlimited potentiality of the universe. And as many times as I've read that, and as many times as I've heard that there is one divine source, I think that exposing myself to that concept when it's not connected to any particular aspect is what helps me stay in that frame of mind, because it's a joyous thing to hear that there's unlimited potential in this universe. I mean, I think about the feeling I get just making that statement, or when I read that's going on. So it's kind of like the practice itself is helping me keep my mind going into that expanded way of thinking. Yeah.
As I'm listening to everyone speak, what keeps coming up to mind is, I have 5 nieces and nephews, age 13 and under. And I've noticed over the years the progression of them starting off with this idea of this understanding that they're born with of infinite possibilities. Children don't, when you ask them, what do you want to do when you grow up, or what do you want to do tomorrow, they pick things that are like the biggest things out there, right? They don't feel limited. They don't think there's anything stopping them from going to the moon or becoming a singer or becoming a Broadway star. I mean, they just say what their heart desires. And then
No filters.
No filters, and they dream big, right? But as adults, we have these phrases like pipe dreams or turning your nose at like, oh, he's such a dreamer, but not in a positive way, right? Where being a dreamer is actually the most beautiful thing in the world, because you are now connecting to that infinite potential, to that all that is. There is no limit. And yet, just as a observation, I do notice that whether in school or at home, we are socialized to kind of go in the direction of like, be practical. Okay, you know, art is beautiful, it's great as a hobby, but what are you gonna do to make money? And those things can chip away at a human depending on the human. And there are others who it will not touch and they will continue. But I see that it is something that it's innate in us. This connection to the infinite potential, we're born with that. And then we're kind of digress sometimes. And then we come back to it if we're lucky. Mm-hmm. So we are lucky. We're sitting here having this conversation because we do believe in this infinite possibility.
Mm-hmm. So my granddaughter was 5 when she decided she wanted to be a pediatrician. And I said, well, why do you want to be a pediatrician? You know, logical mind in a 5-year-old is so interesting, because she said, I also want to be a veterinarian. And if I become a pediatrician, then I can look after children and also dogs and cats. So she, some way, somehow, she got that information. You know, by becoming a pediatrician, then she could also look after animals as well. Well, that's gone by the wayside now. She's going to be 21 at the end of this month. But she also has possibilities that are unlimited for her. You know, she got to change her mind about what she was going to study, and now she's gone in a totally different direction than what she started out doing 4 years ago. So, the thing about ideas, they're also unlimited. You know, that it's not just God that's unlimited, but God never gave us an idea without the ways and means to implement that idea. You know, that we wouldn't have dreams or aspirations without the ability to some way, somehow see those dreams and aspirations come to fruition.
I want to add, too, that the current generation, for females, they have more opportunities, because when I was young in the 50s and 60s, the only thing that I was told, either be a teacher or a nurse, which those are responsible jobs too, or working in an office until you find a husband and have kids. And I grew up and didn't want to take that path. And I'm glad that now that there's those opportunities for females, that they can do anything. I know there's still a lot of changes to be made, but at least they're not told, oh, well, you're a girl, you just get a husband. That was what I was taught.
Yes.
But
yes,
I will say,
we all were taught.
Nancy, when I was in school, I used to think, oh, it would be fun to be a school nurse, because I thought all they did was just hand out Band-Aids to kids. I had no idea what they do. They probably have more, all the documenting and stuff like that. But I used to think, oh, well, that's a cushy job. You just give little, comfort them if they hurt themselves. So,
yeah.
I learned, though.
It's probably one of the most difficult jobs, because you have to have parent skills, you have to have nursing skills, you have to have psychological skills, you have to look at emotional, hormone skills, all of that stuff. I've been listening a lot to Carolyn Mace lately, and also Gabor Mate, who is a Canadian doctor in British Columbia, who is doing really wonderful work on addiction. And I saw an interview with Tim Ferriss and Gabor Mate, who came to Canada during the Hungarian Revolution in 1956. And his mother told him when he was in university, she told him, be a doctor, you'll always have a job. Doctors are a necessary part of living a good life. And he did that. But he found his niche, if you will, through a divine idea where he realized in his study of psychology that most addiction has to do, alcoholism, drug addiction has to do with using alcohol or drugs as a coping mechanism for trauma. Childhood trauma, young adult trauma, whatever the trauma was. So what he's doing now is actually working with people to make them understand that a drug or alcohol addiction is not a disease. Disease means like it's something in the physical body, but he sees it as a coping mechanism for trauma. It makes perfect sense to me. He talks in the second paragraph, Ernest does, about imagination is continuously increasing. New ideas come to us every day, and we know how to execute these ideas. You know, I learned something new just this past week. I'm not going to share it with you because you'll think I'm like, I always think I'm really quick as a learner. But when I figured this out last week, I had a moment of awareness that the truth is it's never too late to teach an old dog new tricks. So what new ideas can we have and see them realized, even as elders in the winters of our year? Or Vinu, maybe you're in the early autumn of your years. There's always something new that can come to us and create a whole shift in consciousness for us.
Yeah, and you know what? I really resonate with that. Recently, I've been reading a lot of Neville, and he really talks about the power of your imagination.
I have that big fat book that has all of his books in one book. You do too? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really significant to me to just expose my mind to that, because sometimes I can get kind of stuck on what is, and thinking that that's the way it's going to be. And I find that when I separate my mind from that concept of limited thinking, more when I read about the potential of the imagination. And it really has made me begin to think about what may be and what's connected with it. And one of the things that I found is that colors. I used to have this idea that colors were colors. It wasn't anything significant with that. But I found that when I was walking in the park and I looked at the trees, and I saw, and one of my friends, she hit me and she said, "Did you notice that each one of these trees are a different green?" And then it was like, wow.
Yeah.
How many times I had thought about it, it was just this green or that green, light green, dark green. But then if you look at the tree, every tree out there that's green has a different green. Mm-hmm. The potential, and how unlimited that is. So it's kind of like, reading Neville has made me appreciate and expand my ability to take in how we can open these doors even wider than what it is. And so now it's like, when I start thinking of what may happen, I begin to find myself not narrowing it down, just letting it go as far as that it can go, and thinking about as many ways that my heart would allow me to let come up.
So one of the books that's in this big book of all his books. Now, none of these were written as books. They were transcribed talks that he gave. But in the one book, Creative Imagination Changed My Life. And I saw Neville speak at the Masonic Temple on California Street in San Francisco in 1968. I love name dropping. And I will do it every time I get a chance because I got dragged to that kicking and screaming by a friend, right? You've got to come and hear this guy. And of course, he has a British accent. And I was mesmerized by him. And then I started to feel emotionally attached to what he was saying. And I mean, I was like in a puddle because I thought to myself, if there were a church that taught what he was talking about, the place was packed. The Masonic Temple holds about 3,000 people. There was not an empty seat in the auditorium. And it took all the way until 1973 for me to find religious science. 1973. And I didn't even know that I had gone to a religious science church because my Uncle Alfred had been killed in a freak accident out on the desert when they were out dirt bike riding. And I'm the only relative that was in Southern California that could attend on behalf of the family to this service. And it was in Downey because that's the school system where he taught. And he was a former priest. He left the priesthood in 1962. And my dad told me he was a Christian Scientist, right? So I go to this memorial service, and it was not a funeral. It was like no other memorial service I'd ever been to. It was like a celebration of life. And it was just the most amazing, uplifting, and beautiful service. So fast forward to being a practitioner, 1989, this was 1973, 1989, 16 years later, I was invited to a practitioner symposium at the Downey Church of Religious Science. And I walked in there and I immediately had deja vu. I'd been here before, realizing that church that I went to in 1973 for my uncle's memorial service was a church of religious science and not a Christian Science church. It was like, ta-da! You know, I mean, there is no idea that we can have about anything or anybody that cannot be demonstrated in our lives in a way that is a teaching moment for each one of us, right? Right.
You know, the last part of that sentence I want to say is that he knows how to execute these ideas. That component has been brought to me more not recently. Knowing how to create it in the class that we have on Monday night, that's been our discussion because we often think it's because we don't know the full way in which something is going to develop, even if it is a new idea. We give up, it kind of makes us hesitant. But when you trust that what you're saying here, that the infinite intelligence is coming through us, the means and ways for that to unfold can come through you. And it may not necessarily, and I'm realizing it may not necessarily be from what I've learned, history, or even people around me. Somebody may show up in my life to bring me that answer, as any other way that it may occur.
Remind them which class it is you're talking about.
Self-mastery, and it's the class that we are. And we're learning how to trust that creative process in the sense that when we have these ideas and we feed it into the creative process that's within us is that which brings it into fruition. So that's why trusting and being open and receptive, because it's kind of like when you plant the seed into the ground, You may water it to keep yourself focused in that way. You may even put some fertilizer. But it's that ground, that creative medium, that's going to do what is necessary for that seed to break open and become the greatness of what it is.
Well, the next paragraph is kind of interesting because where the middle of the paragraph, it says it is not enough to state that God is limitless. For though this abstract statement is undoubtedly true, no concrete manifestation of it can take place in the experience of your client until we specifically designate that it is taking place. Here's what's interesting about that, is that I've had clients keep a record when they're having money issues, for instance, to keep a record of circumstances or situations that arise in their lives where they got a gift or they were taken to lunch by somebody. They don't see that as a concrete demonstration necessarily of income from an unexpected avenue, but it is. It's a teeny tiny thing. And Stratton Smith would say in his 4T Prosperity Program, never refuse a gift that is given to you under any circumstances. Never say, someone says, I'd like to treat you to lunch. No, don't do that. You're putting your good at bay, I think it was, I can't remember who said this, but David Walker said, never let your good get in the way of the best. We're always looking for our good, more good to come to us, but never let it get in the way of accepting an even greater idea, the best, being what Ernest Holmes says, we're here to live a superlative life. But the client sometimes doesn't notice the small things, but the small things add up to a big awareness. It's like baby steps. Martin Luther King said, you take the first step. Even though you can't see the top of the staircase, take the first step. And the first step is acknowledging a lunch you were treated to. The first step is receiving that butt ugly lamp that nobody else wanted. But you take it anyway because somebody else is going to use it. You pay it forward. If you don't want it, you pay it forward kind of thing. So I love that, that person has to have an experience of seeing the limitless opportunities that God has in store for us. Yes? Yes.
So what do y'all think about this last paragraph, that first two sentences? I wrote it.
Oh, you're moving us ahead because why does the time go so quickly?
Yeah, I know. So, look at that.
About free every belief about him that he has brought to you?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll speak.
Please.
This is about the person who comes for treatment, right?
Yes.
So if the person comes to me saying, Vinu, I have this going on and this isn't working and this isn't working and that, if I hold on to that, I cannot have this connection to the limitless potential, the limitless possibility. So for me, I have to release all of that. Like, great, you've said your piece, but I don't attach any of that.
Nancy, tell her what Raymond Charles Barker used to say.
I don't believe it.
I don't believe a word of it. He never said it out loud. He would say it in his mind when someone was giving them that kind of diatribe.
Yes. I want to share something that happened actually today. It wasn't me giving someone a treatment, but I had to call my phone company. There was this unexpected extra charge on there. And he was very kind, and I was just being really appreciative. And he said, I said, I don't mean to bother you, but I just noticed this, so I wanted to call. And he said, no, it's fine. I understand. People have been calling because, these were his words. Money has been really hard to come by for people these days. That wasn't my belief, and that's not why I was calling. It was a $5 charge. I was like, why is it there? But in my head, I thought that. I don't believe a word you say, because I was like, that's not true. That is not my truth. But clearly, he had to go. I could tell he was rushing off the phone call. But I wanted to sit there and talk to him for a minute and be like, you know, you don't have to believe that.
Yes. I know. I used to carry a soapbox around with me when I was first in the Science of Mind. And it got to the point where my boss had to say, you know what, Maureen, not everybody wants to believe the way you believe.
Yeah, you have to get to that place. Oh, I thought about that yesterday when I was having a conversation with my nieces, who are neither one, they aren't English teacher. And I was just going on and on.
And all of a sudden, their eyes glaze over. Yeah, yeah.
And maybe about 8 minutes into the conversation, I realized that I'm the only one talking.
Yeah.
So yes, you can't go down that road.
You know, I saw Nancy and I saw Carolyn Mace one time at Founders Church, and that church holds 2,000 people if you have the balcony and the main floor, and there were that many people. Nancy was sitting behind me, and she kept whacking me on the back of the shoulder. Oh my God, listen to what she said. I'm listening. At the end, they did a Q&A, and this guy stood up, and he had just had one of those immersion things where it's like you're in a cocoon and they close it over and you're in water, and it's like being in the womb. And he stood up and he told Carolyn Mace that everybody in the world should have this experience. Mm-hmm. And she stood there for a minute listening to him, and all of a sudden she puts her finger up like this, which he stopped talking. Nancy will remember this, and she goes, well, what if everybody in the world doesn't want to do that? You know, sometimes we have to be careful because we're so excited about our demonstrations, our ability to be discerning about spirituality and what works for me and works for Kathy and works for Vino and works for Nancy and Renzen. We want everybody to know.
Well, to your point, what happened to me today, though, was more about, I want to say, about me, meaning I was really surprised that, I don't believe this anymore. There was a time in my life I would have gone along with that conversation.
Oh, absolutely.
And added to it and be like, oh my God, the world is falling apart and things are so, because I was raised that you have to struggle to do well. And when that no longer feels true, it's actually like a breath of fresh air when someone says something that you don't believe anymore, that you used to believe, and you're like, I feel liberated. So it's very freeing.
Yeah, we those awarenesses need to be cemented because, wow, I've gone 3 weeks without complaining about parts of my body that hurt, you know, or I've stopped worrying about something that I worried about, and those are those little small special moments where we realize we're not the same person we were yesterday, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. And sometimes, as Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith would say, never let a good crisis go to waste. And when he said that, I thought, well, isn't that strange? But we can look back on it and see, you know, how far we've come or how we managed that differently than we did prior to realizing it's an opportunity for growth, it's an opportunity for prayer, and it's an opportunity to absolutely know that divine ideas have a place in our lives. And yes, we go around telling other people what a good life we have. I had one student in class years ago who said, I'm never coming back to class. All these people brag all week, all class long about what they've accomplished during the week. And I said, if you see it as bragging, then you're coming from your own ego thinking. And he didn't like that either. So I realized it's not about bragging, it's about sharing a demonstration. You know, share that with other people, because other people can be buoyed by the good that's happening in our lives and the best that we're shooting for, right? Mm-hmm. Right. Any last thoughts? We only have a few minutes. Anything you want to share?
Let me say this. I had an experience when I was trying to figure out my money, how I was going to do something. I said, I don't know if I don't know. I'm going to be short. And I was up there discussing about not having enough. And my friend Barbara Harrison, y'all know her, and she said, Nancy, you always have enough money. See, like, no matter what we get, somehow money always show up for you.
I feel like that.
And you know, when she said it, I said, oh, I like that. Because I never thought about it for myself, but that was how she saw me. And you know what I felt when she said it? That's what you call a beautiful friend. She's seeing.
Reminding you.
Yes, reminding me.
Yes.
To stay focused in a different direction. And I think, and ever since then I've been thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to practice that. Because that is actually true. We have enough to do wherever we believe we can go.
It's even not about comparing your situation to my situation, to Kathy's, to Venu's situation. That there's no comparison in the mind of God.
Right.
So when we start comparing, well, this person has more than I do, I have less than that person, that's when that monkey mind, gets in the way. So I keep vigilant about what we're thinking today, what we're saying, and what we're thinking is as bad as what we might say. Mm-hmm. A lot of times we think if we don't say it out loud, it doesn't count. But sometimes, one of the teachers I had said, in order sometimes to dissipate the negative energy of it, you have to say it out loud. But you say it out loud in front of someone that you trust and that you care about, not to hold it against you, that you've had, as what was Howard Thurman would say, a moment of low resolve instead of high resolve. And I think that's the beauty of our teaching, is that we have compassionate, understanding practitioners who are going to point out to us when we're sounding a little defeatist. And it's not a bad thing, it's a good thing when we get to do that for somebody. Yes?
Oh, and listen, we really welcome anybody to join us on this, discussing these wondrous ideas. And one of the things I want to say is, this is an opportunity, I think, for people to kind of know where they are, because I found that when I'm describing my use of the principles, I can see where I am. But I also get a chance to see, from hearing to others, the potential for where I may go and where I may expand. And I think that is one of the rich things about describing the experience in that belief. Because we're looking at our individual lives, not so much as comparing, but looking at our individual life. So if I come from my heart and describe it, and we want to welcome everybody to come and have an opportunity to just discuss the richness of the principles that we are working to practice on a regular basis. So with that in mind, I'd like for you to join me as I do a closing treatment. And know that our heart and minds are open to the richness of the spiritual presence of life as it feeds us, nurtures us, and lifts us up to a higher way of being. As we look forward to knowing that moment by moment, the greatness of the universe is forever bringing forth newness, expanded, rich understandings of being. And as we live our life from these principles and this understanding, we are able to step into our heart's desire with more ease and grace. And so it's with these loving ideas that we are embracing not only for ourselves, but knowing the richness that we are bringing to the environment that is around us, and lovingly accepting and knowing that the divine presence of life is forever in front of us, around us, in us, and through us, and as us, bringing greater and greater ways of being. So we allow ourselves to leave this experience tonight feeling that we been filled with a greater appreciation, a greater awareness of acceptance, a willing and open mind and being to allow the spiritual presence of life to find its greatness in a way for it to bring it forth, its greatness, through each one of us. And as it brings it forth, we not only bring it to ourselves, we bring it forth as we see it in others, in every way, in every form. The oneness of life is really saying yes to each one of us. And as we go forth to do this with such love and appreciation, the skip gets greater, the dance gets more fulfilling, and we let go and let the Spirit has its way with us, fully and completely. And we joyously allow that which we have placed into the law to flow with ease and grace, as we say together.
And so it is. Thank you all for being here, and thank you all the angels in the empty seats. Yes. Have a good evening and get home in safety and good order.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.